Tip-Off Wednesday edition, and we are live as we are each and every Monday through Friday here on WagerTalk TV, live for NBA Tip-Off at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, and this is Wednesday, August 26th edition. And we have 3 NBA games today. We have 33% more games than we had yesterday, as we only had 2 yesterday because the Nets and the Hell Yes 76ers decided to get swept. The Pacers decided to get swept today, so now we have 3 games. But we got 3 good games to talk about, and we'll get to the first daytime game, which goes in about an hour here, Magic Bucks, in just a moment. It's a really interesting matchup to talk about the way that series has played out. Before I do so, though, I want to bring in one of my 2 usual suspects, Rob Vino. Rob, how was your Tuesday? What are your thoughts overall so far this week in the NBA playoffs?
Well, the Tuesday was good. 2-0 NBA, 5-1 overall, and kind of righted the NBA ship now because now we're back to a 9-2 last 11. So that's been it's been a pretty good run here for NBA. Yesterday's thoughts, how about a quick thought on Nate McMillan getting fired by Indiana today?
Wow.
Kind of a shame to see him go. I think Nate McMillan's a good head coach, but when you get swept out in the fashion that they got swept out, I guess you need to do something. So Indiana will be looking for a new coach. Seems like everybody's looking for the same coach. Injuries that we'll talk about tonight. A chippy game last night for those who didn't see, but boy, oh boy, Montrezl Harrell was all up in Luka's face from the get-go, and Marcus Morris joined in, and was it an intentional run at Luka's ankle? Was it not? But we wound up with like 6 technicals in a pretty chippy third quarter. So we'll see how these injuries turn out for Dallas, Steve. Luka and Porzingis right now, I think, listed as questionable for tomorrow.
Yeah, and if you had the over-under 1 minute into the show before I had to mute Tony Finn's microphone, you cashed your ticket there. It sounded like the Swedish chef from the Muppets was dropping knives in the background there, which is very likely. Who knows where Tony is? But
yeah.
Tony, you also would have cashed money. I guess, was Brett Brown officially fired first, or did the Pacers at the underdog price win that bet?
I'm not sure about that. Did they fire? Did Brett Brown get fired? Really?
Has he officially been fired yet, Rob Vino?
In this town, he has, yeah.
Exactly.
So I think he was the first to go.
Exactly. He was fired after game 2, right? So, yeah, Tony, what were your thoughts overall? I mean, this would have been game 5 for the Pacers, and not only are they out of the playoffs, but their coach is already gone while other teams are still in the first round.
I think there's some other things going on there because the Pacers suffered some extra important injuries this season, and in fact, they had some drama actually going into the bubble. With Victor, and he didn't know if he wanted to play. It appeared to me that while we don't have all the information, that maybe this Indiana team, maybe they just weren't behind their coach and their leader per se, and that's pretty important. Especially in the playoffs. We can talk a little bit about that when we talk about some games today on how some of the differences for me as far as making the playoffs or winning in the playoffs. And some of the variables I use that I find historically accurate, historically reliable, and important.
Yeah, and it's something we've touched on, all season long in the restart is how much do we handicap these regular season games like a normal season. It was very different, obviously, because they didn't mean as much, and it was almost like an NFL preseason, I kept saying. But now we're in the real season with the NBA playoffs, yet we keep asking ourselves, is this going to play out like the playoffs normally play out? And, Rob, I think it's a good transition into our daytime game here because, both the Bucks and the Lakers came out really flat as game 1 Class A number 1 seeds, which is something normally does not happen in the playoffs. Historically, those teams play well in game 1s. We've seen them bounce back. The Bucks have been inconsistent, though, still. Fantastic episode on Monday here on Tip-Off. The Bucks were up by 3 going into the 4th. I gave them out as a play here as a 7.5-point in-game. They cashed that pretty easy, but then we didn't think Tony's minus 13 had a chance. And as we left the show, they end up winning by 15 right after we go off air. So what do you make of this now, Rob? And by the way, the line is 14.5 now. It's right in between what the line was and what the final margin was the other night. My personal feel is that the Magic probably have very little left. I guess the bigger question, though, Rob, is, do the Bucks steamroll them here and finish them off?
Yeah, I would agree with that, Stephen. And real quick, I just want to get back to Tony's point about Oladipo. There's reports today that Victor's on the trading block. Yeah. So maybe there was, something there. Who knows? But I'm of the same opinion, Steve, as you. I think that in Milwaukee's case, you will probably see a huge defensive effort right out of the gate. I think Milwaukee needs to get out, establish a big lead, something like what the Lakers did the other night, and then be able to coast home in the fourth quarter so they can get a little bit of rest. The offense has not been their problem in the last 3 games of this series. I mean, the first game they didn't shoot it well, but the last 3 games they've shot it well. 47%, 49%, 52%, not in that exact order, but those are the 3 field goal percentage totals for this team. And to your point about how much Orlando has left, we talked an awful lot about Portland maybe being fatigued and worn. I think the same thing for Orlando. You know, it goes all the way back to the Jonathan Isaac injury. We talked about it as soon as that happened, how they looked a little depressed after that game. They came up flat the very next game, got it together a little bit, and certainly for game 1. But now, as these series wear on, and you're shorthanded as Orlando is. Just you read some of Steve Clifford's quotes, and they know they're overwhelmed, outmatched. So I would think that Milwaukee puts up a pretty good defensive effort here and does the job early. I kind of like the total here, Steve. It's so hard to play anything under in the NBA, and I've had great success all year playing overs, but this might be a case where 227.5, 227 is just a shade too high.
Yeah, and 227, pretty high total for the playoffs because a lot of those games initially were going under. But one game that did not go under was the Clipper game last night. And I got to bring in Ski now. He was trying to find his Clippers jersey. Instead, he had to settle for his Lakers jersey. But we ganged up on Tony when Rob was here the other day on Monday. I think we had a 3-for-1 special, as Rob pointed out to me pre-show with the what was it again, Rob? What did we have on Monday? The over.
Yeah, we all had the Laker Portland over.
That's right. And so we got a 3-for-1 beating on him there. And then Ski by himself for the first time in NBA tip-off history in show wagering live, he got a 3-for-1 spanking on Tony the very next day as he had Clippers first quarter, Clippers first half, Clippers full game. Some might say they were somewhat correlated. I won't because I'll say those are 3 individual bets. By the way, I had my 5% best bet on the Clippers last night to bring me to 4-1, 80% at WagerTalk on best bets that are 5% rated. So Ski and I were glad to see the LA Clippers put up the 3rd most points in a playoff game in history last night. But I digress. Let's stay on this game, guys. And Ski, first of all, I bring you in there. I have a feeling your Tuesday went pretty well. I'll leave it at that.
Oh yeah, I've had a pretty good few days. I've won 6 of my last 7, and I know Tony should be making it rain sawbucks on me today. I think I got the Nuggets too yesterday.
Did somebody say something?
Selective hearing at that age. Tony likes to point out how old he is, and now he's pulling out the selective hearing trick. It's a good one.
You guys are making me feel pretty damn old right now.
Well, game here, I agree with pretty much everything Rob said. Milwaukee jumps on them early.
Yeah, we're going to lose Ski. I like it, though. Ski, but the good news is Ski got in just quick enough to hammer Tony. The analysis of the Bucks game was secondary to just slamming Tony.
I liked him just like that. It's perfect.
you like him like this? Or I'll bring him back. That. Oh, he's not even there now. Now it's just a blank.
Right
now he's back. See, look, you woke him up. You woke up the sleeping giant, and now he's back full throttle. Now, Ski, you look good now. Continue your thoughts.
I just, for the most part, I agree with what Rob said. I think if you like the under, you like it early. I think we've seen them hold down Orlando early a couple times, and I think they after that they kind of cruised to victory. So I lean for Milwaukee. Milwaukee early too, probably first half and under. The ways that I lean in this game.
What's interesting, guys, is we talk about these totals sometimes being higher or lower. You know, college basketball, the second half is always 60% of the game total, without doubt. Here's a game which should be a blowout considering the odds makers have them as a 14.5-point favorite. The total is 227, 113.5, Tony, for the first half. Actually, 113 to be exact. So they're saying the second half will be a point higher scoring than the first half. Doesn't make much sense to me.
We've seen a handful of these, actually, that have kind of befuddled us a little bit. But the last thing I want to do is question the guys that are making the odds and setting them and saying, here they are. If you don't think I'm right, test me. So we do plenty of that, but it's more about what we think than it is than the number they put up in this game, guys. I've talked extensively about Orlando and the fact that they're one of the I think they're second to last in bench points in the league. They rank at the bottom in 3-point shooting, field goal percentage, a true field goal percentage shooting, and Milwaukee is coming in here. And typically, I wouldn't administer some of my variables, some of the philosophy I have for playoff games and making the playoffs and winning playoff games and advancing are much different than like we talked about regular season and making the playoffs. In this situation, most of the time I wait till round 2 to administer those, but it applies here, guys. Milwaukee was not happy about game 1. If you look at the quotes and you look at the way these players are, they're coming into this game as playing like they're the underdog, and every single possession they're down 10, 15 points. In that situation, unless Orlando plays like they did in game 1, which I think we know they're not going to hit 23 pointers, 16 3-pointers, what they hit. Okay. I think we know Milwaukee's going to be a little more energetic than they were in game 1. And if Orlando can't cover that last game, we sat here and said they outplayed Milwaukee for 3 quarters and still lost by 15 points. Milwaukee's 20 points better in a vacuum. They're 20 points better. So there's a combination of things that have to happen. Milwaukee has to be less than. Orlando has to be at their best for them to cover in this game. And I'm betting that one of those doesn't happen. How about you?
Well, I was just saying, the odds makers, of course, want even money. It's not necessarily about even bets; they want even money.
True.
But if we look at the live chat right now, as we're live here on Wednesday afternoon, pretty much consensus in the chat room that it's Bucks or pass in this one, and I think that's exactly why this line is a whole basket higher than it was in the last game at 14.5.
Yeah.
Once again, this game tips off in about 45 minutes. It's at 4 p.m. Eastern, and it's on NBA TV. They say that if you're not the Raptors, you're the Magic. You get stuck on NBA TV in the playoffs. That's basically how it works in the first round. The 2 night games, by the way, once again, TNT tonight. So we've got the NBA TV tip-off here at 4 Eastern. Bucks right now, a 14.5-point favorite. Should close the series out today. I didn't check the money line, guys. I'm going to do that real quick. I'm guessing at least maybe 1 to 10, maybe.
Yeah,
what do you
I don't
think?
think it's quite high. Maybe it is. I don't know. I thought
I'm seeing anywhere from 11 to 13 to 1 on the Bucks, and then the take back is about 8 to 9, about 8.5 to 1 on the Magic. So 90+% chance that this series ends today, according to the odds makers. Rob Vino, let's look at the early evening game here. Thunder Rockets, really interesting matchup. When the playoffs began last week, Houston was the only favorite to win a series that was less than minus 280, or basically it was less than 1-3, and they were minus 155 going into game 4. Game 4, right? Because this is game 5. Going into game 4, the 2-1 lead, the Rockets were 1-5, minus 500, and the takeback was plus 400. I thought that looked a little high. I didn't have a play on that game, but I kind of hinted on the show here that I thought that was a pretty big over adjustment. The Thunder came back to win in overtime. I think everyone had written them off for dead still, but they're not dead. They're back in this series, and Houston's a live and die by 3-point shooting team, Rob. How do you handicap this one tonight?
Well, they shot pretty good from 3 the other day, right? They made 23 of them, about 40% from beyond the arc, but they let one get away, Steve. Mid-third quarter, Houston's ahead in that game, 86-73, and starting to open up. And we saw this a lot in the regular season. Tony and Ski, you guys will remember because we talked about it a lot. Oklahoma City would get behind by these big numbers and then come flying back in the second half and win games. And it's exactly what they did in that last game. And they've been behind in this series at times and been able to make their way back. So certainly it's a characteristic of theirs. I don't think it's a mirage because it's happened more than once this season. It's happened quite a few times. But they still roll with the strength of their guards. And at the end of that game, when push came to shove, James Harden couldn't score, and Chris Paul and Dennis Schroeder couldn't be stopped. Schroeder just blowing by people like they weren't even there. And, of course, Chris Paul has been fantastic offensively when it counts the most. So, hey, when the guards play, Gilgeous-Alexander contributed 18 points once again. When those 3 guys are in unison, This is a tough basketball team. I do think that today, we saw a report that Russell Westbrook was maybe questionable. I don't know that he'll go here. I actually played this game, but I didn't play it considering Westbrook whatsoever. So I'm of the opinion that he won't go here. But, Houston, once again, played their style of ball and couldn't win last game, which is interesting. Now you're at 2-2. It's a real series. And we'll see if the Rockets can get back in here. But again, I think at this point in time, Oklahoma City's guard trio is outplaying the massive amount of guards and swings that Houston has. And if that continues, Oklahoma City, but in my opinion, they're the tougher team. So if it comes down to sheer toughness and who's going to win at the end of the game, it would be OKC. But I think Houston will show some fight today.
Ski, one problem for the Rockets, you live and die by that 3-point, but that fast pace as well as Rob said, they let a big lead get away from them. They very well could have won this series 4-0 and be done right now, and instead it's 2-2. And what are your thoughts on the series going forward here? As I mentioned, Houston was a -55 favorite to start. They were as high as -500 plus 400 takeback going into Game 4, and now it's -200 takeback plus 170 on the Thunder. So you have a 2-2 series. That's now a 3-game series, yet they're a 2-1 favorite when they were only a -155 favorite when it started the 7-game series. That's kind of interesting as well. If anything, a 3-game series should favor the dog more than the favorite. So the odds makers have been jumping all around on this one. What are your thoughts?
I would agree for the most part with what Rob said. And I think we've mentioned this before, but I mean, the first 2 games, OKC, they played relatively slow. And they're playing a lot faster the last 2 games. And I said that we've heard it was either Chris Paul or Billy Donovan. He said that the team is at their best when they play faster. They want to play fast. And when they play better teams like Houston, that's what you have to do. And I think that they figured that out. I think that the guards give Houston a headache. And like Rob said, Houston shot, 40% from 3? That's as good as they shot all series long. I don't think you can ask for much more than that. Another key for OKC, they mentioned earlier in the series that they wanted to defend without fouling, and that's what they did. If you can go against James Harden and not put him on the free throw line majority of the night, that's a good job in my opinion. I think the Thunder have figured out the Houston Rockets, and like I said, when the Thunder play fast, they play good. I think they play fast, and I think they show up here tonight. So
I mistyped here. It actually should be 115.5. I'll make the change here. The first half line 115.5 versus 225 for the game line, Tony. So this is one where they're definitely shading the first half to be higher scoring by nearly 5 points versus the second half.
Yeah. Again, we've seen this, and I wouldn't argue with it. I mean, we've seen a lot of teams come out. We've seen a lot of high-scoring first halves, haven't we? Somebody scored 75 friggin' points in the first half. Some team, I don't know, the better LA team scored that many points, I think.
Exactly, because they cost you 3 straight wagers last night, or technically 2 wagers in that first half.
Here's what I expect tonight after talking to some people I really respect out of Oklahoma City that work with this team that are beat writers, some television and some journal, or at least newspaper online and actual papers. They make newspapers. It's amazing. But what we're going to see here is they really believe that that Harden and company are going to be a little more physical, especially with Dort. And what they're going to do is they're going to do the best they can to. And we all know that this Houston team, part of their MO is they try to get in your head, and they don't necessarily do it by talking. Although I think we'll all agree that that's Westbrook. That's a Westbrook kind of an MO. It's a kind of a Butler, what he does as well, what he brings to the court. And they're going to do a lot of picking for Harden. And rather than letting him just sit out there and spread the floor, they're going to make Dort fight through and do some switching that may not only tire him out a little bit, but being a rookie, it might get to him. He may come off the handle a little bit. Maybe if they can get him to yell, scream, get the official attention. But I think that's what we're going to see. Physical. And if you guys have been talking about how Thunder have picked up the pace. Last game, the game they won in overtime, they really didn't push the pace. They waited till overtime to really go to small ball and take Adams completely out of the mix. If you notice that, they went to pure small ball at that point in time in the overtime, and it worked for him. And I don't think D'Antoni and Houston was ready for it. I don't know if you guys noticed that as well.
Yeah, and by the way, the adjusted series price on the Magic series, I got to put this up on the screen, is this right now, guys. Tell me what you think of this. You can get $1 back for every $1,300 you risk on the Bucks. The Magic, you get $1. You get $430 for every dollar you risk. So is anybody? So keep that in mind, Tony. So you can catch up on your 0 for 6.
Can I just have the middle of that, because I kind of like the price structure there. I like the middle. If I can get that on my savings account, I'd appreciate that.
So the true odds would be 850 to 1 is what those odds are saying. It's the half between the two there. You add them up at 1,700. So 850 to 1 is what, 99.999% maybe, without a calculator in front of me. But to put that in perspective, though, the reason I wanted to pop that up, because once again, the adjusted series price here, and I'll type it as I do it because I'm getting good at this, is Rockets minus 200, take back plus 170. Rob Bina, what are your thoughts? Once again, this was minus 155 plus 135 when it was a 7-game series. Now it's technically a more random 3-game series, yet the Rockets are a bigger favorite. They're a bigger point spread favorite here at 4.5 tonight. Do you see any value? And if not, Ski, Tony, chime in as well. But the odds makers are obviously saying they feel the Rockets have been the better team and are the better team going forward, more so than they thought a week ago.
Well, I think in this 3-game series, if it does become a best 2 of 3 and we hit Game 7, I think the Rockets will be the better team, because at some point Russell Westbrook's going to play here. It may not be tonight, but it'll be Game 6 and 7, and it'll just be an extra thing for OKC to have to handle. I think that'll be a difference maker. I want to point out a couple of quick things here, Steve, when you were talking about halftime, because I cashed a first half over with these two teams last time out. They played 4 games so far. 3 of the 4 first halves have hit exactly 120 points. The other one hit 112. No second half in this entire series has hit 112. So all 4 of the highest scoring halves have all been the first halves.
Wow.
No team each team has shot better than 44% one time out of 4 games in the series. Houston did it once in Game 1. Oklahoma City did it once in Game 4. And yet they're still able to produce overs. So there's plenty of chances there. I think, sometimes the audience might think that when we talk about playing fast, it means you're just at Greyhound tempo up and down the floor, 94 feet the entire game. But I think OKC has been selectively fast, especially in the shot clock. I've seen a lot of times where first pass goes to Schroeder on the wing and without any hesitation just blows by the defender because he's got a mismatch and it's an easy layup. And Houston, of course, the ball's in bounds before it goes through the net. So it speeds up in spurts, not necessarily all game. And that's provided a chance for these teams to get over a couple of times here. But first halves have really been a gold mine as far as over is concerned. I think they're 3-1 to the over so far.
Yeah, and Ski, that points out what I said here on this game is that, once again, the first half line is about 5 points higher than the second half line. We look at it here, it's 225 versus 115. That's 110 for the second half. And what should be a competitive game with a point spread of only 4, Ski. Any thoughts on first versus second half in any of these games?
I'm not going to disagree because I watched that last game and I think the first half cruised over and it got a little sweaty for the full game. So I see where Rob's coming from, and I wouldn't argue too much there. I did want to point out one more thing, though, on this game, just from a statistical point of view. Looking at the Rockets as a favorite, less than 2 days rest, and just facing not one of these superior teams, less than 70% win teams, so like not the Lakers, Clippers, Bucks.
Non-Class A, yeah.
Against the spread, they're 1-9. They're 2-8 straight up. And looking at OKC, as a dog between the line of 1 and 5, they're 15-1 against the spread, so I like that for OKC.
Yeah, Tony, do you put much stock in that? The first angle I put, no matter what Ski said, you weren't going to put any stock in it. That was a given. That was the safest in-show wager I could have all season right there. Should have booked that one. The smaller spread range, is kind of random, I think, sometimes. But the first one, Ski, I thought was interesting. Shows more of maybe a letdown or a focus factor. And I keep going back, Tony. The Rockets live and die by the 3. For me, it's like I did the NASCAR show today. They're at Daytona this weekend. We all said it's hard to handicap Daytona. There's big crashes. It's a random race. The Rockets are a random team to handicap because they live and die by the 3. They blew a double-digit lead. They lose the game. They could be out of this 4-0 already. Now it's 2-2. So, I mean, how do you approach that?
Well, I've been fairly successful with the Rockets because I'm very selective with them, and there's a couple situational matchups that I choose, and I think the Rockets are fairly deceptive. They shoot a lot of threes, but those threes come from almost all the threes either come from Harden holding the ball until the shot clock's almost done, and he fires it up
half court,
or they're kickouts, and it's because they drive the lane and they kick it out to the open guy, and they get more paint points than you think too. But Harden, he hasn't in this series, but for the most part, he gets those calls. He gets touched, he gets a foul. I really like when I talked to the writers yesterday. I really like what they had to say, and they're usually spot on. I trust them, and they think that the Rockets are going to be more physical, that they're going to be attacking that lane, and they're going to make Dort hit the floor. I think Dort's going to hit the floor a couple times today. I heard what they said to me. They didn't say that, but I can read between the lines. So that's what I like. I like that old-fashioned playoff basketball anyway, where if you're going to the rim, it's going to be, what's coming. At least the first time you go to the rim, it's coming. You're going to be on your ass, on your back. The old Pistons and even the Celtics and all those teams that I grew up with, you didn't just freely go to the rim and casually, do a little twirl, 360 dunk, whatever the hell it is.
The 88-89 Pistons wouldn't have allowed it with Bill Laimbeer in the middle?
Maybe, I don't know, maybe today if they were playing, Bill might not be able to.
Yeah, he might not have made a roster nowadays, to be honest.
They wouldn't even right?
They would never even looked at him. What do you think, Rob? What do you think?
I think just to make a quick comparison to what Tony's saying about, and that's the beauty of a series, right? Is that you have time to figure things out and adjust. And what Tony has mentioned is that Houston has, got to respond to Luguentz Dort and his defense, and they're going to do so in a physical way. I think it's very comparable to what happened to Michael Porter Jr. in the Denver-Utah series, where Utah figured out that, this guy can score, but you know what? On the other end, we can find out exactly where he is, and whoever has the ball can score on him.
Yep.
And they've done that throughout that entire series. So, like I say, it's the beauty of a 7-game series. These coaches and these staffs are no dummies. They figure it out, and we'll see if Dort can handle it today. It's interesting that he and James Harden, the guy he's been head up against, are both the ASU Sun Devils.
Yeah, and adjustments, of course, is the key to the NBA playoffs. That's why over the last 25 years as a full-time professional, I've told my clients year in and year out, the NBA playoffs are probably my most consistent moneymaker. Not as much volume, obviously, as the regular season or college basketball or baseball is a huge volume season. You grind out a profit, but the spots that work in the NBA playoffs have worked consistently since I started in the mid-'90s. Class A teams off a loss. Hey, look, Clippers, 5% winner last night on WagerTalk. That's the stuff I look for. And, Ski, a lot of that is still working here in the bubble. It's a different world, but it still rhymes somewhat with the past. We got a lot of time to talk about this game because the other two games, the Bucks game's a tough one. It goes off in a few minutes. We got a lot of people that watch us later in the day and the evening for the night games. We'll get to the Lakers here, Blazers in a moment. Not going to be a lot to say about that one, though, because Lillard's out. So let's spend a little more time here with this main event game here, Ski. Any player props you're looking at? Any guys maybe play on, play against guys? One thing I'll say, Tony, you talk about Harden, and I agree. He takes these ugly threes, he makes them, but they do get a lot of open looks. So it's not a coincidence because they are all on him. Yet, the last time I was involved with the damn Thunder, and I'll say the damn Thunder because I believe it was game 2 when they did not cover because I didn't have them the last 2 when they cover and win. They blow the lead there. And when do the Rockets go on the 14-0 run? It's when Harden's on the bench and Westbrook is in street clothes still. So hard to figure for me still in this series in general, and that's why I'm not involved with this game again tonight. Ski, any over-under props? Chances saying he likes Adams' rebound prop. It's been good for him. And that kind of goes to what Tony was talking about, the big guy situation. What do you think, Ski?
Yeah, you take advantage of those small guys for Houston. I'll have that written down on my paper. I think it's 10.5.
It seems cheap again. Yeah, they're just not adjusting that.
10.5 points. I even like that. And the only other person I would look at, we've talked about who's going to be clutch down the stretch for OKC, who's going to be big if they win, and it's going to be Chris Paul. So his point total was at 20.5. I think he averaged 21.5 points per game in the series.
I like it. So give those out again,
any
Ski.
of
I like
three
those. I think that's some
props.
good information.
Adams rebounds over 10.5, his points over 10.5, and Chris Paul
Got it. So
points
Ski
over
is going
20.5.
long, as we would say in the financial markets. Adams and Chris Paul for the most part as well. But Tony, I like where he's going with Adams. Chance mentioned it here in the comments as well. I'll throw it up there again. It's been good for him so far. The Rockets are who they are. They ain't changing no matter who they play. They're going to dictate their style against anybody. So I don't see Adams not having a big game again. What do you think, Tony?
I think he could sleep. He should be able to sleepwalk
Exactly.
and have a big game. I'm not a big Adams fan. I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him, and he's a pretty big guy, and I'm old. I can't throw him very far. I'm telling you right now that that's probably a good prop because, again, those things should be accident. He should get 11 rebounds accidentally, in my opinion. So
he just has to stay healthy, basically, Rob.
Yeah, right. Yeah, stay upright.
Yeah, I mean, he just has to play.
Yeah, I'm not a I think Steven Adams, for what it's worth, is a shade overrated. I think that offensively he should be far more productive than he is. At times he's clumsier than he is, athletic. But he serves a purpose on that team, right? His job really isn't to score, even though he should be able to score against smaller teams. I look at this, Steve, real quick, and I don't have the numbers in front of me. So if anybody does know the number, just let me know. But Eric Gordon, to me, is interesting in this series. Eric Gordon's been absolutely miserable in 4 games from 3-point range. He's 7 of 34. He's had an 0 for 10 and a 2 for 10. 7 for 34 in the series is a shade over 20%, I think 20.5%. Yet somehow, some way, Eric Gordon, shooting the 3 ball lousy, has found a way to 15, 18, 21, and 23 points. God forbid he has one game where he shoots. And I think that, all things being equal, you should get some movement back to the normal here. And perhaps Eric Gordon would be a good total points overplay, for however long this series goes, starting with tonight, because I do think that this guy's too good of a shooter to be 20% from 3-point range. So for me, the fact that he's been able to stack up points no less than 15 in any given game shooting miserably, I think that, and again, without knowing the number, but I would assume it's somewhere in the 20 range. I think Eric Gordon over is probably a good look here today.
Yeah, Ski, Tony, I'll get your quick, 30-second thoughts on this, and we'll move on to the Laker game. But, Ski, what are your thoughts on Gordon? Because Rob brings up a good point. He's a guy that, for me, I thought needs to step up. But do you try to guess which game he steps up, or do you just kind of take a wait-and-see approach? Well, I'm going to pull up the numbers, too, by the way, while we're doing this.
I see his point total at 17.5, I think.
Nice. Okay.
And
so it's lower than what Rob would have thought then. So I guess Rob feels there's value there.
Well, you know what? And then I'll let Ski go real quick. But, Steve, knowing that right now, he's been over that number 3 or 4 games without shooting the ball
not
whatsoever.
Not even playing well. Exactly. Yeah, so Ski, I'm starting to get talked into the Gordon over prop. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I like the over, so I'm not going to really argue too much on the main guys having points.
Good point. It is somewhat correlated
as well.
Yeah, that brings up a good point, Tony. I mean, it is going to be somewhat correlated to how you see the game playing out as well.
Steve, something crazy in this series real quick is that, every single game has rotated venues in this one particular series. They've gone from that Advent Healthcare to that HP Fieldhouse, back to Advent Healthcare, back to HP Fieldhouse. So they've rotated every single game. Today, they're back in the Fieldhouse. I don't know that it makes a difference, but it's just something interesting to look at.
And by the way, the Adams points and Adams rebounds, as Ski said, are both over 10.5, a little bit of juice. There's one prop, points, rebounds, and assists, 22.5. So if you think he'll get 2 assists, you can play that one as well. It's I'd probably stick with the points, rebounds. Rob, that's an excellent point, though. I was not even aware of that. I'm looking at all these as neutral courts. I don't even look at the venues. But I forget they do switch these around, and that's kind of an interesting thing to keep an eye on. Tony, you put any stock in that? That's kind of an interesting tidbit.
Well, yeah, I do. They do that and I'm guessing, I'm assuming, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm guessing they do this so there's some sense or some feeling, something you can reach and grab onto that this is our home court. This is our territory. And is there a correlation to the venue they're playing at? Are they the home team for that game? Is the Thunder you know what I'm saying? I'm asking you. Is
You
there a
know what I
correlation?
think the correlation is, Tone? I
Uh-huh.
think it's the time slots. I
Okay,
really
very good.
do. I think it's whatever time slot you get jammed into, and these have
That
been.
makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense probably.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the NBA.com scheduling of these games, it's different than the rotation every day. Of course, they have to make sure,
Yeah.
that the Lakers play the late game all the time, so
Yeah.
they stay on the same floor all the time.
You know, and
And,
I guess
and the
should we know
Clippers.
this? Should we? Are we supposed to know these things? Really, I don't know it. So my best defense is no. I don't put any stock into it because that would be the only reason I don't know it. Right.
Well, the other thing they have to make sure is that the Raptors or the Nets or the Magic play the early game every day as well, because that's basically how it works.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Teddy had pointed that out a couple of weeks ago before the playoffs started, that the Clippers and Lakers, he'd seen the advanced schedule with the 9 o'clock prime time, and we laughed about it. And I don't like the NBA. Other than making money by betting these games, I have no use for the NBA. I think they're crazy. I think they're hypocrites. That's another show we'll talk about. But I will say they're LA teams. You do have West Coast viewers, so it's 6 o'clock there versus 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So it does make sense for that reason. But obviously, those are primetime teams as well. But yeah, I think it's scheduling. And by the way, I called this the other day, guys. Game 1, Celtics Raptors will start tomorrow, while other first round games are still being played. Actually, one beforehand. So I mean, in fact, one after. It's the middle game tomorrow. And because they got to have that Clipper game as the late game, the Clippers game 6 will be played after the Raptors Celtics round 2. Game 1 has already been finished. And that's the crazy world of the NBA. It's all about matchups and TV, obviously. Hey, speaking of LA, speaking of nightcaps, speaking of Ski Profits jersey, let's look at this late game. Not a lot to talk about, guys. We have about 7-8 minutes left here. I did that on purpose because I don't think this is a great game to analyze or handicap. But Ski, I'll throw it to you first instead of last, like I normally do with the Lakers. Give me your thoughts. Lillard is out. The line is ballooned because of that. I'm seeing now a 13.5-point Lakers favorite across the board. It opened 5.5 in game 1. It opened 5.5 in game 2. Closed around 6.5, 7 in all the games. Now it's 13.5. Ski. They've doubled the line and then some.
Yeah, bye Blazer Army. That's what I think. It's been a struggle for them to score with Lillard. Now they have to try to do it without him. I would just say good luck for Blazers trying to score some points tonight. I think they struggle to get to 100 points. I think the Lakers probably focus and come out early and jump on them so their stars can rest and not get injured, just like the last game. And if I had to play, it's laying the points with the Lakers, and I like the under the total. Like Tony says, it's probably a correlation today.
Yeah, and it's 13.5, 222.5. I'll pop it up here while you talk, Tony. First half line, though, is 8.5-ish, 113.5. So no question, they think the second half will be substantially lower scoring in this game.
Yeah, if you believe there's going to be a 20-point,
right? If it's a blowout, right?
Then you're going to have a low scoring half. Yeah, the Lakers are not going to press. They're not those guys that are going to embarrass you for no reason at all or pour it on. They probably won't even give LeBron that much minutes if they're up 30 points in this game. My point on this one is that there's very few times in the NBA where you can lose your superstar and still feel real comfortable. I personally think that team is still the Clippers. If you want to look at the last 3 years and the bench points the Clippers put up, it's not just the points. It's the efficiency that second unit runs at. That's not the case with Portland. They're one of the lowest bench scoring benches scores less points, I think, than two other teams. And the war for Lillard is far too high for who they have. They cannot replace those points, guys. And if they can't replace those points, then this is another LA 25, 30-point win.
Yeah, and Rob, we always talk about in the NBA regular season. I know it's an angle you guys probably watch. I've used it for decades. Teams often get a bounce that first game without a superstar. We get a 5 or 6 point line adjustment. Yeah. The favorite comes out complacent sometimes. The underdog comes out motivated. These guys are all pros. Like you all have said, they can all score. So if this was a regular season game, I'd probably like the Blazers. It might even be a play for me because of that angle. Yeah. All bets are off here in this situation. The Lakers look bad in game 1. They want to get this done, win this next one, rest, get on to the next round. Blazers maybe very well might not even show up because they know their season's over. Although there's one team that might not want to get back to their home city right now, it's Portland. But otherwise, you could say they want to get out of the bubble. And yeah, so we'll see what happens here. But how do you handicap this, Rob? For me, it was a pass. I'm actually passing the NBA tonight. I'm not using any of these three. I think these are tricky games. But, Rob, do you see an angle here which you can exploit?
Well, I feel like it will probably play itself out the way the last game did, right? LA scores 80 points in the first half. They're ahead 80-51. LeBron James only played 28 minutes in that game. Anthony Davis, 17 and a half. They didn't even bother to use those guys. And I think you would see much of the same today. That being said, Portland showed some fight and won the second half 64-55. So the Lakers, much like, Steve, I'll use a college football analogy here, much like Nick Saban in Alabama in fourth quarters when they're up 49-0 and he lets off the gas in recent years. LA let off the gas, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them let off the gas again. The question is, will Portland, a team which showed second half fight, even though they were getting murdered, they continued to score, like I say, 64 points in the second half and won it and covered it. But will they have that in them in a series elimination game, knowing that they're going home? CJ McCollum's back is still not right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, maybe we would look at McCollum to take up the slack for Lillard, but it's not going to happen. And
I want to interview. You're right, Rob. Here's the deal with McCollum. I'm glad you brought that up because I did not throw this in. And that is this. That is when, if you'll look at Lillard's missed some games. And he missed some games in March, right before we went dark, if you remember. And McCollum has to take over. Not only he has to put himself into that point position, he also has to score. And that's not his role. It's not his role. And he only averaged 22, I think, in those situations. So not only are you doing that, I think not only do you have nobody to replace the points off the bench for Lillard, I think it devalues McCollum, personally. I think you're right, Rob.
And Ski, can I interest you in some Carmelo Anthony props?
Oh,
here we go. We got Anthony over 17.5 points, over 5.5 rebounds, 25.5 point rebound assists, 3-pointers made, 1.5 over. I like that one. It's minus 160 though, but I think that makes sense if he takes more shots. And here's the one I really like, Ski. Anthony turnovers over 1.5, but it's minus 195 now, so it's been hit pretty hard. But I see Carmelo having 2 turnovers because I think he gets a lot of action tonight, even in garbage time maybe. What do you think, Ski?
I don't think he's going to be shy to let it fly, and I do think he can put the ball in the hoop, so I would look at the points over.
Over 17.5, I believe, is what I saw there. Rob, can I get you on some Carmelo Anthony bandwagon props here? That might be the way to attack this game, guys. If Lillard's out, who has to step up and take some shots? And to me, it seems like Carmelo, especially if it's a blowout game, will just let it fly here.
Yeah, if you're looking for the guys who were in double figures in shot attempts the other night, now Damian Lillard didn't leave the floor until the third quarter in that game, but Anthony did have 15 shots, only went 1 for 6 from 3, and still scored 16 points, Steve, which I believe is – did you have a total that was under 16? That you just rattled off? I forget what you said for Carmelo.
Carmelo, I believe it's 17.5 to the over.
So he had 16 the other night.
Right, but
probably take a couple more shots.
Exactly. Yeah, I was just saying. So that's only a 1.5 point adjustment.
Yeah, Gary Trent Jr. is another guy that has launched in this series. So his total is probably even lower than Carmelo's, and he played 34 minutes. So even when the YMCA game was going on in the fourth quarter, Gary Trent was out there and Gary Trent was scoring. So maybe he's a guy I would look at too for Portland.
I love that, by the way. I use the playground analogy. I like the YMCA analogy. I might have to start stealing that one.
Could you just go ahead and start singing a song for us, will you?
That's does it not pop into your head right away? I mean, it does. It's a nasty little thing he just did to all of us.
I refuse to admit that. And
which one were you, Tony?
Never admit that.
He does look like one with the greatest beard. Oh my goodness!
The Beach Boys? I don't think they sang a song. Okay, listen.
Construction worker, sailor.
What's the rebounds for Howard?
Yeah, I'm looking at. They don't have a lot of other guys. They got a lot of McCollum props, and they've got Carmelo jumped out at me. I thought Anthony's a guy that would play more, just because he likes to be a ball hog and he's got nothing to lose. Who are you looking for here, Tony? I'll pull it up here. I'm not seeing a lot of props. I've seen Davis and James are the only guys they got for the Lakers, really.
No Dwight Howard.
How about this, guys? Danny Green over under points 8.5. Does he get more minutes tonight if it's junk time?
Ski's playing under.
The under is minus 130, so we get even money. Danny Green over 8.5 points, Ski.
Under.
Over.
I take the over. I take the over here just by default.
Did you say over, Ski?
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, he's going to play 20. He's going to play 25 and 30 minutes.
That's what I think too. So let's get a 3-for-1 special against Rob.
Yeah, let's do it.
We're going to give Rob the under, and you're actually getting minus 130, Rob, because it's minus 130 under. So we're giving you even. We're taking a bad number here, but we're 3-for-1ing you. And Tony Finn will tell you how that worked.
I did that because I know Ski hates the guy.
I know.
I do, but he kind of redeemed himself a little bit the last game. He made a couple, so it's
hate is a strong word. It takes a lot of energy to hate.
That's all right. Fans hate. Believe me.
Yeah, it's funny.
I'm not a fan.
That's a pet peeve of mine too. I tell my kids, like, look, don't say hate. I'm like, you hate broccoli. No, you don't hate broccoli. You just don't like broccoli. It's like, and you hate. But there are some things I hate, and I can't think of one right now because I'm in a good mood today. We're 4-0 this week, and I'm happy. I'll tell you what. Well, I put up the adjusted series price here. Rob Bina, let us know what you've got going on for Wednesday night at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, I am up with 2 NBA plays. I also have a pair of Major League Baseball plays. So 2 of the 4 are best bet selections. So they're up and available right now at WagerTalk.com.
And Ski's feeling good. He's so confident that he wore his Laker jersey before they win. Of course, they're a 13.5-point favorite. They're a minus 1,200 on the money line. And as you see on the adjusted odds here, that would be the true odds would be 200-1 that the Blazers come back, Ski, and win one of these last 3 games in a row. So it's 200-1 shot that Ski has to burn that jersey. I don't think anybody wants an in-show wager on that. Ski, what you got going on? You've had any WNBA this week? Anything going on tonight, Wednesday?
Yeah, like I said, I've hit 6 of my last 7, and I have a best bet in the NBA and a best bet in the WNBA tonight.
Nice. I like those WNBAs because Ski specializes in that, and he's done quite well with it over the years. Tony, what do you got going on here at WagerTalk.com for Wednesday night?
I wasn't going to do much because I'm on a pretty good run.
Yeah, by the way, 28-8, I believe. Since I know you won't pump you won't toot your own whistle, toot your own horn, whatever the saying is.
Yeah, we got to stand up for that.
28-8, not bad.
28-8. Having a pretty good August. I think about 70% or 80% in August alone. 20 games over. 8-0 in the 8-0 in the NBA. Is that right? No, 8-0. 8-0 all sports. 7-1 in the NBA. 6-0 in MLB. So it's been a good month. And I got my signal. I got my sign the other day when I got I got the hot triple poker stuck up me, on that one.
Yeah, I was just saying, the only thing you haven't been hot on is the in-show wagers.
But I have 2 NBA. I got the early game. Nice. I got the late game, and I have 1 Major League Baseball game that I really like too. So my hope is that wearing red again will work.
Yeah, and by the way, you guys will appreciate this. Rob, you weren't here yesterday, but Ski, Tony wore the Mets jersey, and I'm glad Tony brought up the red shirt because I made fun of this in the baseball show. The Mets, Tony wears a Mets jersey yesterday. We spent a good 5 minutes on it plus. I'll never get those 5 minutes back in my life, by the way, but he spent a good 5 minutes plus on the Mets jersey. Who was on the back of it? The Mets go out yesterday in a doubleheader and get shut out in the doubleheader for the first time in 45 years in the Mets organization. So buyers beware.
I got it put away. So anybody call me if you're on the Mets. If you're
on the other team,
I'll wear that bitch to the show.
And now they're minus 250 tonight as a favorite after getting shut out. And Tony's wearing red. So Reds and Red Sox backers, be careful. By the way, I'm not going to give away my free play because I want everyone to go to WagerTalk.com right now and see my free play. I also did a free play video, but I am using one of the red teams tonight in Major League Baseball as my free play. And the line has dropped 10 cents since I put it out on WagerTalk.
You're playing the Indians then?
Actually, the Indians are another team. That's not the one. It's either the Reds or Red Sox. I won't give it away. But the line has dropped,
correct?
Tony.
That's correct. That's
but there's a lot of talk that the Indians will not be the name next year. So we'll have to see.
That's like saying I'm going to bunt on Abbott. That's what I'm doing.
Well, I was going to say, I grew up, of course, in the D.C. area, and I no longer have the Redskins, so enjoy the Reds and the Red Sox while you have them because those might be gone as well. But, yeah, my free play, the market has moved against me already just because Tony Finn wore red on MLB First Pitch an hour ago.
Baseball doesn't matter.
But, hey, guys, free plays are at WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com. I've got a free baseball play up, and I've got a best bet tonight in baseball. 4-0 this week, 21-10 the last 2 weeks. And it's not a 5%er. Sorry, we only won both Monday and Tuesday with my 5%ers, now 80% for the month. But, hey, 4%ers are pretty damn good as also. And we're all red hot. Rob, Ski, Tony, myself, all at WagerTalk.com. Programming note, guys, we'll be back tomorrow as we are every Monday through Friday, 3 Eastern, noon Pacific for NBA tip-off. I'll also have the baseball show tomorrow at 2 Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. So baseball at 2, basketball at 3, each and every weekday here on Wager Talk TV. That kind of rhymes, so we're going to end on that one. Guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Great show as always, and good luck tonight.